Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, Crackhead with a Microphone, the only podcast in the world where you hand the crackhead a microphone and you listen to him talk until you wonder if you are the high one. My name is K-Rock Dizzle. Let's get into it.
Hi guys. Before the episode starts, I just wanted to let you guys know this is not going to be your typical comedy episode. This is actually the first two chapters of a story I wrote. If you guys like the story and you want to hear the rest of the chapters, definitely let me know. I do also want to point out I do have a sore throat in this. I do have a prequel when I'm reading this, so if you can hear it, just be aware of that. I've definitely tried to edit around it. You won't hear any like coughs or anything, but just wanted to give you a fair warning of what you're about to listen to. Also, I tried to keep this in the short realm, 25 to 30 minutes. It might run a little long. Just want y'all to know that. But if y'all want to hear the next two chapters, I've got them written and settled in the bank. And definitely want to hear y'all opinions on this. Comment, subscribe, like, let me know when you don't get it. But for now, enjoy the first two chapters of this story. Chapter 1. A town full of degenerates. Ron was an interesting resident of our quaint little town. The town looked and sounded like your typical American suburb, except everyone here was a raging drug or sex addict. A lot of us were both. It was a town full of high functioning fucking degenerates. He moved here when he was 10 when his mother got a promotion at her job that required a new location. Most children at this age would be sad to move in a new town on a whim. The prospect of never seeing your school friends again, being in a new house in a new town, most children will go through the 5 stages of grief or some sort of sadness about the situation. But Ron, he simply accepted it without any remorse. He had nothing to lose leaving his own school. He pretty much had no connection to anyone there. He wasn't much a friend kind of guy. Many teachers worried about him that he would go to recess and read or study rather than play with the other kids. He ostracized himself, but he never seemed sad when he went home. He wasn't bullied or teased or anything like that, just ready to be out of school. From a young age, he imagined what life would be like having to never have to go to school again. I'm not sure if any kids were in third grade dreaming of high school graduation, but he did every day. And every day he survived school was a day closer to freedom. When he first moved here, he seemed more confused than anything. He sat in classes during the first day, pretty much just observing all of the kids, including. It wasn't much different than how he acted at school, but he figured all of us were high pretty quickly. The glazed eyes and tired faces, white powders on the noses of kids, syringes in the desks. Everyone pretty much did not even care about the classwork, and teachers were barely functioning. Yes, even the teachers were high as a kite. His theory was pretty much confirmed at lunch when he was going to school to pull a pencil from a backpack to start on some homework, and a straggler came up asking what drugs he had on him. She made a duck face at him, hoping to seduce him into giving up whatever stash he was reaching for in his bag. Then he responded with none and tried to go back to doing homework. This girl was pissed though and demanded that he have some in stock tomorrow. Ron was visibly confused and this straggler then yelled, "I don't know what kind of plug runs out by lunch." The cafeteria started to laugh before Ron went on to explain that he was not an out of stock drug dealer, but in fact a completely sober individual. The room went almost silent in disbelief. She gave him the stink face of a lifetime. If looks could kill, they both would have been dead in a kamikaze style explosion. She thought he was a liar, but considering he was a 5'11 huge dude, there was nothing she could do about it, just yet. Everyone saw this interaction and saw her walk away pissed, and people were scared of what would happen to that kid later in the day. See, the straggler he pretty much told to leave him alone was resident popular girl, Elizabeth. So it didn't take long for word to spread around that a sober kid was roaming the hall with a backpack full of actual school supplies. Some people believed it, while others thought he was just being a selfish prick or a runner with only a certain clientele. That led to the introduction of Matt into Ron's life. Matt was Elizabeth's overprotective, abusive, in the closet football player boyfriend. He called wind that some new kid had lied and refused her drugs, and there was no way he would react to that information well. Right before last period, he walked up behind Ron and put his arms on the locker surrounding him in a coffin of human flesh. So huge, 6'3" and over 300 pounds of pure jacked muscle. He often bragged about how he was the definition of what a true man is and that he had the peak physical form. Many people feared him and wouldn't dare to tell him no to anything he wanted. And between this and Elizabeth's unusual ability to seduce people to get whatever they want, they ran the school. The bang of Nate's hands on the locker caused everyone in the hallway to freeze and watch what was happening. Matt was about 4 inches taller and jacked to the gills, so when Ron made eye contact, he had to look up. He figured this was some typical high school jock ready to make empty threats to the new kid, and he would have been right if Matt wasn't a complete psychopath. After a brief moment of silence, Matt spoke. Hey, I've never seen you here before. It's my first day. Ron stared back at him with a blank expression as he was already over this interaction. He noticed everyone staring and whispering about him since lunch and figured this was a follow up to that. He wanted to tell this guy to get to the point, but he held his tongue and the conversation continued. Do you know who I am? Matt asked him with an undeserved sense of bravado. Ron wanted to laugh as he felt this was a stupid question. He simply responded, No, it's my first day here. You could hear some of the onlookers start to chuckle at the slight tension relief Ron was able to accomplish. Others gasped, feeling as though Ron was toying with Matt and Matt's ego. Matt simply scowled in Ron's face. Well, I'm Matt, but as far as you're concerned, I'm the guy whose girlfriend you designed a hit of acid earlier. Ron sighed hard, not believing this. Listen, I really don't have any acid, or weed, or coke. I don't do drugs. He stayed so calm while he spoke. Most people usually shiver in their boots when Matt wants something from them. But this kid, he was different. Matt laughed. The crowd of folks watching couldn't believe that this kid was bluffing so hard about something no one cares about. A kid even yelled that you can't even get in trouble for being high here, hoping to save this kid the beat down of the century. You think I'm a fucking idiot? Ron was cool, calm, and collected. He knew what was true and how to easily prove his innocence. You want to check my bag? He offered his backpack to Matt, who instantly snatched it straight from Ron's hands and dumped all the contents onto the floor. A sea of notebooks, pencils, and pens spilled onto the floor in a mess that had absolutely zero illegal substances or stimulants aside from a pack of mint gum. Matt and Ron looked at each other, but the looks on their faces could not be more different. Matt was flustered. He made a ruckus, and that was made to look like a fool in front of the entire school. He couldn't even blame anyone but himself because he was warned. Ron, on the other hand, had a look of realization. Someone this demented and unhinged is not a good person to have hating you. Between his large sense of hubris and this humiliation even taking place, he knew that he would have to kill Matt. He clearly didn't mess with the other kids here and seemed to be pulling way too many strings. He could see the power trip in his eyes and the anger that came about when no drugs were revealed in the bag. It was the look of a man that would not take a humiliation like this well and would be out for revenge. Matt walked away, leaving Ron to pick up his items and go to class. All of the witnesses to what had just occurred simply stared in awe that someone in the school was clean, and I, for one, didn't like the fact that he was suffering for it. I walked over to help him pick up the dropped items. I introduced myself, and he thanked me before heading to his final period. It was almost like he wasn't fazed by what had just happened. He just went on about his day, which, in all honesty, probably pissed Matt off more than the drug-free lifestyle or the embarrassment of being publicly incorrect. Ron wasn't scared of him, and that took any power he could have over Ron right out the window. After school let out, Ron began to walk home. It was a long, exhausting first day of school, and he just wanted to rest. On the way home, he spotted an outdoor convenience store with soda coolers and a white guy working a register. It was Bob's spot. Ron wasn't aware that Bob sold drugs, but Bob had been texted earlier in the day that a new kid was in town and might try to scoop some stuff. This was before the big incident in the hallway, though, so when Ron walked up to the coolers and grabbed the soda, he went to check out. Ron looked at him puzzled. Ain't you that new kid? Yeah. Oh, this all you want? Nothing else? Nah, man, I'm just thirsty. I'm about to go home and chill. To Ron, this seemed like regular small talk, but Bob was confused as everyone from the high school was usually buying from him. He made one last attempt to earn himself a new seller. Yo, man, I got some weed if you want, some good shit. I also got some hard stuff if that's what you're into. Oh no, man, I don't do none of that. Can I still buy the soda though? Bob was visibly confused, but just let the situation slide. He told Ron that the soda was $1 and sold it to him before letting him on his way. When Ron left, Bob just watched in astonishment. He felt this weird sense of relief for some reason, watching this kid just walk off after causing him zero trouble. Ron went home for the night and did his nightly routine, cooked a little for himself and played some games. He was an avid gamer, but not the kind that didn't shower for days on end, but the kind that studied frame data, crunched numbers, and was pretty much always winning in some local online and LAN tournament in the big cities. Usually did this as well as talk to his mom as they had a great relationship. But her new position was an overnight thing, so she wasn't home a lot of the time. Ron was. They saw each other every now and then, but infrequent would be the proper word to describe it. I honestly don't know how you didn't go crazy from loneliness, but I guess after a first day of school filled with high peers, accusation, and a social public execution, the last thing you would want to do is hang out with somebody from school or anybody for that matter. I think that's what surprised me the most. Despite never getting along with people and consistently being an outcast in environments filled with his own peers, he was a pretty okay person. I was happy for him. He wasn't some depressed high schooler stressing about life and really didn't care about fitting in. I respected it even if I couldn't relate. I honestly envied him for it. He was such an introverted kid with no popularity, no girlfriend, no regular friends, was a virgin, and pretty much no one wanted to be bothered with him by the end of the day since he was, quote, the least cool fucking person on the planet, according to Elizabeth. And in this school, if Elizabeth says it, it's true. That pretty much led to everyone ostracizing him by the time lunch rolled around. He ate alone again, and people continued to whisper and laugh at him as he walked by. He took it like a boss, though, pretty much ignoring it. Luckily, there was one person who didn't go to the school that knew Ron, and it was Bob. When Ron walked home for the second day, Bob called him over and sparked a conversation. They talked for a while about stuff Ron was into, his different games, the shows he was watching, what he liked to cook, and how even though the people at school seemed to suck ass, the high property value and property taxes meant the library was filled with great books to read. Bob was memorized by this kid who just has so much to say. He was full of personality that got shoved into the background when being in a school full of loser junkies. About after an hour of chatting, Ron continued home. This went on for a few days before Ron eventually asked if Bob wanted to come over and hang. He knew Bob's brother could hold down the fort, so he took him up on the offer. They chilled and Bob got high, but for all of the drug-free talk, Ron wasn't judgmental of those who smoked pot. In those moments, Ron asked Bob why he was so eager to talk to him, and Bob spilled his heart out. It's so hard not knowing who's cool and who isn't. Everyone in this town just calls me and wants to talk when they want to get high. I don't remember the last person before you I was actually able to talk to without eventually bringing up some drug shit. I just want to chat with normal people about normal shit sometimes too, and I can do that with you. You provide a level of safety and calmness that us plugs don't get a chance to feel. You're a real genuine dude, and I fuck with you for that. Ron was touched and shocked. He gave Bob a hug and didn't say anything. Bob then just concluded by saying that no matter what anyone says, Ron was a cool person and the fact that he didn't do drugs wasn't something he should let people shame him for. Ron was touched and they became friends after this. Ron liked the fact that there was someone in this town that wasn't a complete fucking nutcase. Chapter 2. The Party. Chapter 2. The Party. Back in school, though, Ron was still pretty much a lone wolf, garnering side eyes and whispers whenever he walked through the hallways. Everyone seemed to have an opinion on him, most ranging from disgust to curiosity. There was only one person who heard about this kid and actually wanted to talk to him, Patricia. The problem was all of her friends thought he was a loser, and she didn't want to be ridiculed for talking to him. She was already deemed the fat, ugly girl in school despite looking pretty regular, but the only reason she avoided ridicule was because she was friends with Elizabeth and Matt. She debated eating lunch with him or talking to him any day during school hours, but she couldn't bring herself to do it when eyes were always on her and her trifecta. Instead, she simply passed him a note one day under the noses of everyone. It simply read, "Are you going to the party on Saturday?" Ron read the note and looked back in confusion before scribbling down a few more scratches and handing the paper back. Pat looked at the words, "What party?" and was astonished. She realized that no one even brought up the party around this kid. The realization hit her that all of these people were purposefully being assholes and excluding him after the public humiliation handed to him by Matt. Her mind raced with these thoughts and then she brought herself back to earth. There was no way there was such a plot that was happening, right? She simply wrote an address and a time down on the paper, followed by the words, "Be there," and a crudely drawn eggplant emoji. Ron looked at his note and then looked at Pat before going back to the assignment. He simply didn't care. Later in the day, when he was at his locker between classes, Matt walked up behind Ron. "Hey, freak!" Everyone looked in fear, wondering if Matt had decided to snap on his kid. Ron turned around to see Matt and Elizabeth both eyeing him up and down. Ron stayed calm, though. He already knew he had nothing they could possibly want, so he braced himself for some teasing. The hallway went silent for a few seconds and filled with some tension before Ron, being the type he is, simply responded with a regular, "Hello, Matt. How have you been?" That caught everyone off guard. He was going about this as if the humiliation didn't happen last week. "What are you doing on Friday?" Nate asked with a slight inquisitive look. Ron stated he wasn't sure what he'd be doing. I figured I'd probably make some pasta and watch the show I've been meaning to catch up on. Nothing crazy. The party had completely slipped his mind until he saw Pat looking disappointed in the background. He didn't change his answer though, and Matt and Elizabeth both smiled. Oh, cool, that sounds like fun. Hope you have a great time. These two motherfuckers were the ones plotting for Ron not to be at the party on Friday. I thought it was weird to try and keep it a secret, considering he didn't seem like the type to go to a party either way. But nevertheless, he still knew about the party. They just didn't know he knew. Their plan failed. Once everyone left and went on about their business, and Ron just shrugged the interaction off. Pat, though, she was disappointed. She figured with everyone drunk or high, no one would care if she talked to this kid. I guess that plan was out of the window. She needed a new one. Watching how he stood in the face of Matt and Elizabeth with zero loss of composure, he almost took her off her feet. She needed to see what went on in his head. He walked off to his next class and she couldn't help but stare. The next few days went regularly until it was Friday. Ron stopped by the store to see Bob, but Bob was shutting the place down for the night and packing up his truck with a ton of product. Ron asked him what was happening, and Bob explained that there was this huge party happening tonight. He was headed there as party nights are where he makes his most money. Everyone is buying and he's got plenty to sell. He then curiously asked if Ron was going to the party as he could probably catch him tail. He stated that he heard about the party but never really planned on going. He explained how everyone in school was ostracizing him and stated that he didn't feel like he'd be welcome. Bob understood and started giving him a prep talk. He told him that he should go, and if he is having fun, he could just dip out. He shouldn't deny the possibility of fun, though. Ron decided that going might not be bad if he rode with Bob for the night. They stopped at Ron's place so he could change into something more suited for a party, and Bob was shocked. This kid usually came to school in sweats, but he came out wearing a solid all-white fit and a white jean jacket with some cargos and some Air Forces. Okay, dude, you put that shit on. You gonna have some fun tonight. Bob was super hyped seeing this kid had actual fashion sense. Why don't you dress like this for school though? Because I don't want to dress to look nice just to take notes and do homework. I like to be comfy in school. But if I'm going to have fun in pool, I gotta step out, right? The two of them laughed and chilled at the house for about 3 hours, killing time until the party was getting underway. Bob wanted to get there in the beginning stages so he wasn't swarmed by showing up later. Ron understood and they hopped in the whip heading to the party. As they arrived, they noticed the mailbox outside of the home was labeled Sanders. He turned to Bob with a slightly annoyed look. Yo, bro, who's hosting this party? Oh, Matt is. I'm excited because he's a top buyer, even if he is a bit of a dick. Oh, got it. Ron's face got more annoyed as he realized why no one told him about the party except for the girl with the note. I don't think I'm allowed to be here. Man, Elizabeth hate my guts. Dude, just roll with me. They'll be so high they won't even realize you're here. As he pulled up into the driveway, there was a sea of cars rumbling of shitty EDM music blasting. Lights were flashing, and there were people even outside of the house raging. Screams and chants of chug, chug, chug were heard before they even stepped into the door. Bob walked in carrying a huge duffel bag, and as soon as he stepped in, everyone cheered in excitement. They started swarming him and pretty much ignored Ron. Ron simply pulled out his noise canceling headphones, put them on to drown out the shitty music, and walked off to see if there were any non alcoholic drinks at this function and to explore this huge house. A 3-story mansion is nothing he's ever seen before. He was thirsty and craving some water. As he walked through, some people were stopping and checking him out, as the outfit he had on was drawing some attention, but everyone kind of froze and retreated once they realized who he was. He managed to get into the kitchen, and there was only liquor, but he decided to take a cup and drink some tap water. He also saw a small paring knife, small enough to keep on his person. He was in Matt's house, so he had to be ready for anything, so he slipped it into his pocket. As he walked around, there were people strung out, faded, making out, or passed out everywhere. He headed upstairs wondering if he could find someone fully functional to talk to, as this is where sex sounds were heard from every room. Bathroom, bedroom, closet. All 8 rooms in this hallway had people moaning and crying out in sick, twisted pleasure. Ron chuckled himself before heading back downstairs, realizing he would not be in one of those rooms tonight. Okay, so no soft drinks, that was expected. An orgy worth of people upstairs, not so much. Let's see what's happening outside, Ron thought to himself, and then he headed to the backyard. To his surprise, there was a pool and a hot tub. That is where Matt, Elizabeth, and some of her friends were, including Pat. Matt saw Ron and instantly got pissed. You said you wouldn't be here, you fucking loser. Who told you about this? Matt started to get out of the hot tub to confront Ron angrily. Pat began to look scared, but she also was stunned at his outfit and his calm composure. She wanted to say something, but Elizabeth then chimed in with her mean girl demeanor, still sitting in the hot tub, completely cutting off Pat. Who the fuck told you about this? The entire school was ordered to keep this a secret. She stood up and also got in his face as all lookers were gawking at the commotion. Some were wondering if Ron was about to get decked by Matt, and some were looking at Maddie's body in her bikini as she came out of the hot tub. She was popular for a reason. The boys in the school. She was popular for a reason. The boys in the school are all disgusting fucking pigs. Ron and Pat made eye contact while Matt was yelling at them, and he was clearly confused as the person who told them was in the hot tub with them. But Matt wasn't trying to hear anything Ron had to say. He was filled with rage. Pat was in the hot tub looking on scared for Ron and for her own safety, as she thought the secret was about to be out when she told Ron about the party. Ron went into his pocket, ready to have to stab when Pat yelled out for everyone to stop, and that Ron wasn't hurting anybody. This came as a surprise to everyone watching, but especially to Matt and Elizabeth. They turned to her, and all of their focus was now on Pat as Elizabeth began to scold her. What the fuck is your problem? Pat responded, nothing. I feel like maybe he might have heard about the party from someone talking about it in the hallway or something. I don't think he lied to you. She was stumbling over her words, trying to think quickly on her feet, but everyone figured it was because she was drunk as shit and didn't give her any suspicious thoughts. Elizabeth faced palm and simply looked at Nate. I told you these fucking losers can't keep a secret. Well, you're the one who said you wanted to have a party without him around. Did you have a better fucking idea? These two always argued, and whenever they did, they lost track of anything else around them. At this point, Ron was able to slip past them to the side of the hot tub where Pat was. Most of the crowd dissipated when the mega couple started fighting, and it became clear that no fight between Ron and Matt would break out. Ron was still silent, but squatted down by Pat. She was in the hot tub and looked at Ron. She was a nervous wreck, but this was her chance to say something, anything to him. He took a deep breath and noticed the phone by the tub. He pulled it from his pocket and touched hers with it. The contact sharing feature allowed him to get her number without actually saying any words. He texted her right then and there with a simple message. We'll talk later. Someone more quiet. He walked off and went to try and enjoy his time while Bob made his money for the night. Meanwhile, Pat marveled at the fact that she got this kid's number. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but she felt her heart melting. She wanted to speak but couldn't come up with the words she wanted to say. Um, you okay? Ron asked, looking concerned, but Pat was in such a panic she went to the only thing she knew on how to keep a guy's attention. She grabbed his arm and tried to put it inside her top. Ron instantly pulled back with a look of confusion. The two of them looked at each other, shocked, and Ron just left reiterating that they'll chat later. Pat was distraught as no one had ever passed up on touching her. She simply wanted to cry and get out of the jacuzzi, running to the bathroom just to do that. As he walked past the couple arguing again, Matt stopped him and demanded to know who told him about the party. Just then, Bob made his way to the backyard to see the intense confrontation and instantly broke it up. Whoa, fellas, what's going on here? No need for all this. No need for all this. Matt got pissed, started screaming that this kid said he wasn't coming earlier in the week and was ruining the vibe of the party and that he's gonna beat his ass. But Bob interrupted him and admitted that he convinced him to slide through and to try and socialize. Listen, he's new. I figured he could fly and come through and there wouldn't be any issues. See, Bob was a guy that liked to try to keep the peace in most situations. When you deal with guys who specialize in solving problems with guns, it's best to have a seal like this. He continued on. Listen, Ron doesn't want none of what I have, but how about I give you some of these cool new strains I have? You can smoke it in your hot tub with your girl. It'll relax you. You two can just talk and settle your differences. How does that sound? He looked at the two of them, and it seemed like they pondered the idea, but Matt was over looking like an idiot for the rest of the night. He said he'll buy 2 pounds of weed, but he still wants Ron going. Bob sighed and looked at Ryan, but Ron said it was cool. He's done socializing for one night and pulled out his phone. Bob offered to take him home, but Ron said he'll catch an Uber from a few blocks down so that he can keep making money. You do your thing, bro. I'll catch you on the flip. He walked through the house and out the door. Pat and Bob both looked on in amazement and longed for his presence more, but Matt looked with a sense of hatred. He was going to make this guy's life a living hell.
Well, guys, that wraps it for another episode of Crackhead with a Microphone. Remember, if you like this episode, to like the episode, follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode.
I'll see y'all next week.